$367,000 in just 5 months working part-time in real estate. Today, I'm joined by my good friend, Jonathan Howard, and we're going to be chatting through how he's balancing work, his side hustle, and his family life, and absolutely crushing it with both flips and wholesale deals. Let's dive right in. Today, I am joined by Mr. Jonathan Howard out of North Virginia?
North Central, Northern Panhandle, West Virginia. So based out of Wheeling, West Virginia.
Rocking the eggplant hoodie. What does one have to do to get an eggplant hoodie, Jonathan?
Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe we have to get some sort of a deal that either grosses or potential, equity of 100K plus, break that 6-figure number, right?
Yep. 100K on a transaction. So congrats. If anything, that's a little taste of what's to come on today's call.
Appreciate
it.
Dude,
I appreciate you being willing to just kind of hop on and chat through what you're doing, how you're doing it, and really give people kind of some actionable takeaways that they can go apply in their own market.
Yeah, of course. No problem at all.
So you told me it's been 5 months. We're doing this part-time and we're sitting at 367K in pending transactions, with some of those already being closed. That is a crazy 5 months, man. Congrats.
Yes, sir. I mean, a lot of it goes honestly to joining up CCF and just getting super serious about it. So
no, I appreciate that, man. Why don't you kind of give us a quick 10,000 foot rundown? How many deals have you done and what has been the exit strategy on those?
Yeah. So I think, backing up a little bit, I started actually using your lead engine program. Well, back when we started that s'mores tester kind of for the lead engine program, I believe that was about 2 years ago. So that's when I kind of got my first taste, did my first deal. And I was getting my master's at the time in real estate development. I was like, oh, I want to be a developer. I want to build houses. And so we've done that. We've done 2 ground ups, and, the process is just so long and there's so much interest. And it was like, you know what? I got to get back into the flips again. So that's when, at that point, you had the lead engine program going, start of last year. So I believe December, January, and March, I did the 3 drops with the lead engine program.
Okay.
And, market was a little bit slow last year. Not too bad. It still made some money. I think at least out of those 3 drops for the lead engine program, I got 1 flip. And it's actually a duplex, but it's 2 separate townhomes on the deeds. So technically 3 units out of those 3 drops. And I sold that first flip, made $35K off of it. And then cash out refi, I'd have a $60,000 credit line on that duplex things now. So still made, something good off that. So, going into the end of last year, I was like, man, I just keep treating this as a side hustle. And I was doing the normal, prejudging my leads, that just not calling the ones I thought weren't good, so on and so forth. And so I'd been messaging you multiple times throughout, right? Hey, I want to join CCF. I want to join CCF. I want to get serious. Finally, I pulled the trigger in October, end of October, really started November 1 is kind of what I consider my start date. Okay. So by the end of 25, we had 3 of those deals locked up, closed on 2. And then now come the end of February, really, I've closed on another 2. One of those being what got me this eggplant hoodie, of course. And we've got another 9 in process. So what's been really cool about, kind of the journey along the way is it's for me to really take it a lot more serious. I felt like I needed to hire someone and have another mouth to feed. Yep. So I went ahead and did that. And then I was like, well, now I got to spend more money on marketing. So I've just quadrupled my marketing budget, especially with Ballpoint. I went from I think I was spending $2,500 on 1 drop to 9,000-ish plus call porters, another 1 or 2. So really doubled down on the mailers, and I do some cold calling as well. So yeah, I mean, really, it was just one of those I want to take this serious thing. And really, I think the biggest thing too is looking at it as a business owner perspective rather than the main hustler, the main grinder. That's what's really helped kind of get me to having a lot more deals going. and really just sharing the wealth with the people that I have working with me. So
that's awesome. So I forgot that you were even in s'mores. So that's hilarious. So we ran this thing. It was like 2 years ago. We got the idea of what if we ran like a mini cohort and we pulled their lists for them. We did their mail, we took their calls, and we had them all in one CRM. It was a little bit of a cluster because Resimpli is not meant to have 10 different markets running in it at once with 10 different operators. But it was really cool. The folks that showed up got results out of it. And that's kind of what we turned into Lead Engine, which I don't think I've ever talked about on YouTube, which is effectively that. So we'll pull the lists, we'll drop the mail, we'll take the calls, provide a copy of a Resimpli CRM, and then there's like a monthly support call thing. So that's super cool, dude. I totally spaced that you were in that, probably because it was 2 years ago and I don't have that great of a memory, but that's solid.
Oh yeah. And like, I was actually going through our old DMs. Like I had started DMing you like 2 years before that. And I remember you even had some job opening, and I was like, I tried to apply to it and everything else. And if only I had the courage really to start back then, yeah, I would be so much further now. But the past is the past, and I'm loving what I'm doing now, and I wouldn't trade it. But I guess my biggest call to action for anyone watching is just like, if you're interested in doing it, like just pull the trigger and try it. I mean, this business, there's so many people getting into it that are making tons of money and they don't know very much about real estate. Luckily, I mean, I started as a residential agent 5-6 years ago, and now I'm a commercial broker. But I mean, people are doing this like, and you don't even have to spend money. You just, work in your sphere too. There's just so many different ways you can make a good amount of income in this business. So
it's not self-serving to me because I own the marketing company, but I've been telling people lately, like, if all you're looking to do is like a deal or 2 or 3 or 4 a year, you don't necessarily have to go direct to seller. Like, you can find that from agents. You can find it on expired listings. You can find it door knocking. You can find it even on like for sale by owners or expired type stuff. So it's oftentimes, I think it's like people just don't really want it bad enough to go hunt for it. They want it to more like fall in their lap. So
yeah, for sure. One of the things I love, Andy Elliott says all the time, is cut the check for speed. And so I feel like that's really what it boils down to, is like, I just cut the check and try and get all those leads pouring in, so I don't have to spend the time like looking for them and getting them to my acquisition managers and whatnot. So yeah, I totally agree with you though.
I tell folks early on, it's like it's going to cost you. It's either going to cost you time or it's going to cost you money. Like, even if like you're going to cold call yourself, you're still going to put in roughly $3,000 to $5,000 worth of effort to get that deal. Now, you can outsource that to somebody else, but it's still going to be the time or the effort. Early on in my career, I didn't have much money. I literally, my first batch of mail, I was able to save like 10 cents if they didn't insert it, didn't seal it, and didn't stamp it. So my box came and it was like a build your own campaign. And it was literally envelopes that I was hand inserting. I was licking until I got a glue stick and then like stamping. I remember Morgan and I were watching like the X-Files, inserting and doing our own mail. And off of that first campaign, we got our first deal. I made $10,000. And back then I was making $23K a year pre-tax. So that was like, okay, cool, this works. It's been a long time though, since I've hand inserted my mail to try to save a couple cents. So you've got 367 pending. How many deals is that total?
It's a total of 14 deals in the last 5 months.
And what's the split on those? Because you mentioned you've got a duplex you kept that you got a line of credit on. You mentioned some wholesales. What buckets do those 14 fall into? Yeah,
so I've done pre-November. Okay. I've done 2 flips, 2 ground ups, and I got 3 buy and holds. Okay. So a decent track record. November comes, we've now closed on 3 flips, 1 wholesale. So there's 4. And then I've got another 9 pending. Okay. And then of those 9, we're wholesaling 7 and I'm keeping 2 internally.
Okay. Two so the first 3 you mentioned aren't included in those 14 or the 367.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. So not a bad 12 months for you then, if we had those in too.
No, not at all. Not at all. Last year was, the later part of the year was good. It was kind of like scratching my head at the beginning, really. Cause again, it was more of that, like, I'm the grinder. It's the side hustle. But now that I treat it as a business and I delegate a lot and I'm there for more support, that's just more of my role. I think, that's what I'm better at. So.
it's hard when you're somebody that like wants to cast the vision to also be the guy that then has to go and build the thing. Like I'm notoriously bad at starting things, but not finishing them. Like I need a finisher on my team or like an integrator that's going to take that and run with it. So wholeheartedly resonate with that. What advice do you have for folks that are watching this? Because I feel like the folks I interact with seems to be a split between like that solopreneur, I'm trying to figure out how to do this, I've not done a deal yet. Or it's like the mom and pop investor, they've done one or two, they're wanting to do more. Like, what advice do you have for those groups?
Yeah, I would say it boils down to first, having your dream life scenario, like you showed us when we came out to San Diego. You really got to start somewhere and understand what your dream life looks like, or just write a lot of stuff down. Actually it was summer of last year. I was out at a conference and was chatting with Dave Panazzo, is another coach I have in the space. And I was like telling him, I'm doing this in commercial, I'm doing this. I like word vomited all over him. And he was like, take a step back, get really big sticky notes, put them all over your house. And like you and your wife just like write everything down. And so like, we want to get into Airbnbs and we want to get into some, long-term rentals and this and that. And like what we ended up coming back to was like, it all starts with wholesale. It all starts with direct seller marketing because it's always about the buy. So I would say first, like figure out how many deals you want, like what's that income, what's that dream life? Like your Excel is a perfect example of how much do you need monthly? And then what's that equate to, either marketing or like finding off-market deals yourself, and how many deals a month do you need to do? Then from there, set out the time in your calendar to do X amount of calls or be able to receive X amount of leads and call them, and X amount of appointments. It's all about planning, prepping, and then executing in my mind. So
should I share that? Should I share that template? You think that'd be helpful for people?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I actually did it as soon as we left CCF, the mastermind. I think it was 2 weekends after my team and I went out to Arizona, and I had them do it. Now I know that one of my guys needs to do 6 deals a month and the other guy needs to do 8 deals a month.
There you go. So here we got here is the dream life exercise. So effectively you kind of punch in like what you want to spend money on. This was my old one this was not mine. And it's girlfriend on there. Who did I fill this out for?
That was when we were at the CCF mastermind, someone said something about X amount and you're like, all right, I'll just add it to the girlfriend total.
Yeah. I'm adding this up and I'm like, my wife is going to kill me. The first time I did this exercise, I definitely didn't have girlfriend on there. So let's drop that to 0. My number was right at like 15K. And it was really like, how do we build a business that does that? And then we literally take the average cost per deal, average profit per deal, and try to back that in. So in this instance, if I wanted to make 18K a month and I was making 25K on average on a deal, then I would need to do 1 deal a month. So if I was flipping, for instance, I'd basically want to have 2 or 3 in progress at all time. If I was wholesaling, I'd probably want to have like 2 going at all times. But this gives you a rough way to predict what do I have to spend in order to make this a reality. So I don't know that I've shared that before on a YouTube video, but you dragged it out. So there's the context for folks.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's very helpful, I think. And, outside of that too, I think there's a lot that just a morning routine. One of the biggest things I read back in the day was The Miracle Morning. And I'm like totally a work in progress, right? I think you even have talked about it in CCF actually. And, just having your routine of getting up and doing your affirmations, having your vision, having your silence, for me, really reading my Bible and praying, got very serious about my faith last year. I think that's also helped. Awesome. But, having those things outside of the business too are really important, because you got to have, your home life right, your personal life, like everything inside right. And that's obviously going to feed into the business life. So,
yeah. I forget who said it, but it's like running a business is one of the most brutal personal development exercises you can have. While we're doing this call, somebody else in CCF is having oh my gosh, do I even want to run this business anymore moment? And it's like, bro, I've been there. Like, all right, let me talk you off the ledge, so it definitely has those ups and downs. And I know my days go infinitely better when like I get up, I hit the gym, I get my stuff done, versus the days like today where I rolled out of bed at the last possible minute to get my toddler out the door to daycare. I'm a little like, man, okay, I should have gotten up earlier. So you're doing better than I am in that regard today.
Well, I'll tell you what, I woke up at 4 and I did deadlifts yesterday. And then by the time 5 was, because what I've been testing now is waking up, reading, journaling, yada, 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 before I go to the gym. And then when 5 o'clock rolled around, I was like, my back is destroyed from deadlifts yesterday.
Yep.
So I slept for an hour with a heating pad and then woke up and worked out. It's definitely a grind, man. It's sometimes it's not easy, but so how can you kick your own butt and keep going every day, and even giving yourself a couple mulligans the days that you don't do it. But I can't remember where I read it. Someone said somewhere, like, if you can do even 30 minutes of cardio, like on the treadmill, it has a lasting impact of like 5 or 6 hours in terms of like just good mental health and feeling good and things like that.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I'd rather lift weights than run, but hopefully it's similar.
No, for sure.
So we're looking at 14 deals. We've got 367 coming in off of those. Where did they come from? Like, are there particular lists you're realizing are working better than others, or like some kind of honey holes you found that you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. So it's first started back in November. I did a set of mailers, and I think I got at least one of our closed deals off that mailer. Okay. Another shout out to CCF. I don't know if you remember this or not. I was like, man, why am I paying all this money for a carrot website? Why am I doing this? I can build my own. Look, because I
remember this.
Yeah. So then I get it up and running, and I'm like, finally check it off my to-do list. I'm like, thank you. Like, I'm so happy. I get a random SEO lead that comes in, and that's one of the flips we're doing right now. It's almost done. We'll probably list it come April 1. So like one came from just getting my carrot website set up. It costs like, I think $100 or $150 a month, but it's just so easy. But really, I'd say it was cold callers and direct mail is what I've been doing. And so ballpoint and call porters, obviously just an amazing combo. And it's consistent, right? I've tested a couple different cold calling companies out, and I'm still kind of in process, but from every one I've used, I've gotten at least like a deal or two.
Okay.
Of the like 14 I've got going, the 9 pending, I'd say like at least 5 of those are mail.
Okay.
And a couple of them are probably old cold calls. Okay. So still kind of figuring out the whole cold calling thing for sure. But I think it just depends on your market too, right? So my market, there's not a whole lot of there's like I think 2 or 3 wholesalers. And then I've even heard from other wholesalers and other groups I'm in, like, do you do deals in West Virginia? Like, oh, it's so hard to find buyers out there, which it is. But luckily, I dispo a lot to myself. So I would say my market's a little bit less competitive, but, it comes with its challenges too. In terms of what kind of details I pull, filters and whatnot, for cold callers, it seems like it's very basic. It's just absentee owner, if you can, 35% plus equity within, 20, 25 minute drive time of a decently sized metro. And then for mailers, everything that you pretty much preach, the typical 1 through 4, absentee owner, pre-foreclosure, so on and so forth, seniors with equity, Vinyl Village. Right now it's so funny. I don't know why I never thought of it, but when we were at that CCF mastermind, I think it was Sparker who said, like, if you're hitting oil where you're going, why would you like try and do a different market? And I'm like, yeah. So I guess I'll just double down. So really, at first I wasn't doing any of the seniors with equity or Vinyl Village, but now I'm just ripping them all for the counties we're in. Cool. And I'm just going to try and consistently hit that list for the next like 4, 5, 6 months. And then from there, just kind of adjust and see where we're at and what we need to pull next. So
awesome. Something you hit on that I really like is where you live being a benefit. And I think that's totally true. And I think sometimes for folks, their market could be why they're not succeeding or getting the results that they want to get. And I don't think that's typically talked about. It's kind of like, oh, this works everywhere. I can tell you, somebody reaches out to me in West Virginia and they're like, hey, can you help me find deals? I'm way more like, oh yeah, than if they're in like downtown LA. I've talked to folks before and they're like, there's this kid, I think his name's, it's like Timmy does real estate, Timmy does deals, something on Instagram. And he's doing this like cold calling every day until I've made $100,000 wholesaling real estate. And I reached out to him and he's in Phoenix. And I'm like, dude, if you weren't in Phoenix, you'd probably already have the deal. It's like the market you're in is hyper competitive, and there's several coaches and stuff based out of there. So sometimes I think that can be a detractor. We had a guy years ago in CCF that moved from somewhere in California over to like Tulsa. He was like, I'm gonna figure this out, and then built an actual business doing it in Tulsa. So I love that you nod to that. One thing I'm curious your take on, because I've got my own opinion on it. What have you noticed in the number of leads required to close a deal when it comes to cold call versus direct mail leads? Is there any like trends there?
So I can tell you I've heard from cold call, it can be anywhere from like 30 to 50. And okay. Some people say it like depends on how good your ratio is, which I'm sure that plays a role. I really think it depends on your market and how many times these people are getting cold called. Like obviously you can be an amazing closer, and if you're the 6th call they got, you might be able to close them down and the other 5 couldn't. But still, I think like, especially in my market, I think cold calling works a little bit better only because people haven't experienced it yet. But, with direct mail, like you said, I think it's like 1 per 20. It's hard for me to count right now because we just did that big drop we did it in 4 drops over the last 4 weeks. I think the last drop was this week. So my guys have just been flooded with leads. And I know we've gotten at least of the 9 that are under contract, 3 of those are from the mailers that we just did. So I need to pull that out. But I would say, the conversations we're having are a lot better. Like my guys are like, man, these people actually want to talk. It's kind of hard because I feel like I can get through like 4 or 5 good conversations instead of hitting like 20 voicemails and 2 conversations. I'm like, yeah, the direct mail is definitely a lot better. So I would say your gauge of like 18 to 20 is probably accurate. I can't like confirm that yet, but more than likely, I think that's where it's going to stray.
We're seeing right now on all of our channels, but cold calling, it's like 1 in 14. On cold calling, we've been told it's like 1 in 50. I had a full-time caller that worked for us, only hitting stuff not on the do not call list, and we didn't get anything out of it. So we're now testing an agency. I will say we're getting more leads, but no closes yet. And I think I've had 30 leads come in so far. So I'm always willing to test stuff, but guys that do it, I'm always curious, like, is this just my experience? But I'm also in more major metros. Like I'm sure people in Indianapolis are getting called more than somebody in West Virginia. So you're rolling on month 5 of being in CCF. Obviously you've kind of worked with some of my tools and stuff in the past. How are you like personally feeling? Like you've got a day job, this is a side hustle, and you've got a gorgeous wife. Like how are you balancing all that? You having fun? What's her involvement look like?
Yeah, so things are good, obviously when they're good, and then they're bad when they're bad. But it's like the daily struggles of sometimes you're waiting on a lender to call back, or you're waiting on a seller to sign something because you needed to extend. I mean, things are overall good. We got to face those trials that we get sometimes and just kind of go headstrong through them. But luckily, the biggest thing probably the smartest move, you brought up my wife, right? I told her, I was like, listen, I need you to be involved in the business. Like you are so good at what you do at school. Like just help me with this. And so we've obviously hired someone on full-time as an acquisitions manager. He's actually getting ready to bring his wife on full-time in April as well. Cool. So that's pretty neat. And then she's just been my wife has been my right-hand woman, right? So we hired a virtual assistant with Riva Global, and like, man, she just set up all the docs for me. She got like all these different drives set up for onboarding and tasks and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, I would have never done any of that. And she was like, I know, I'm just trying to help you as much as I can. So that's been great. Life has been pretty good.
Riva Global's been solid. We use one of their VAs for support at Ballpoint. And if our contract didn't specifically not allow us to poach that person, I would poach that person in a heartbeat. So I'm glad they're using them too.
Yeah, no, we have a really, really good one. And it's just, quick shout out to Riva. I forget it's like a quality control kind of manager that watches over and makes sure the virtual assistants are doing what they're supposed to do. I mean, it's just such a clean, good process. It's been cool. It's been fun just like expanding and adding more people on and like kind of figuring out what I want to do with the team to help build them up and get them more educated. So it's been a lot of fun. There's definitely days where I'm like beating my head against the wall. But then there's days where it's like, hey, we locked up 3 deals. Like, oh my gosh, let's go. So, yeah. And especially, getting the wife involved, it helps too, just with at home. Like we kind of both know what's going on in the business instead of me just telling her.
Fair.
So that definitely helps. But, so far so good. I'm loving it. I'm loving, really just pouring into my team too, my guys. They're just rocking it. They're doing so good. It's really neat seeing all these things happening and getting a front row seat to it. I can't be more thankful, right?
Awesome. Do you think you'll ever quit the day job, or do you plan on doing both?
I think there's long-term sustainability in both, right? So commercial brokerage is what I do full-time, and I think there's a way to bring them both together. So I just, on our last mailer set, I'd sent out some commercial letters too. And so I'm hoping, I'm getting ready to become a partner in the, yeah, exactly. And again, same with the residential. If we don't end up buying it, but they still want to sell, we can list it through the brokerage. So hoping to really, get that business going as well as what I've got right now, and elevate them both at the same time is my goal.
Awesome, man. This has been great. I appreciate you hopping on and hanging out with me. If somebody wants to bring you a deal or ask you questions, what's the best place for folks to reach out to you?
Honestly, just find me on Instagram. It's Jonathan Howard _, and we can drop that obviously down in the comments or whatever on YouTube. But yeah, just shoot me a DM. And I'm partnering up with some investors and things too. So it's getting pretty neat. I'm wanting to take down a lot more deals, and I've got a couple great local banks that love seeing investors come in with me on these too. So whether it's a deal, partnering up, just wanting to get some basic knowledge, or even asking me about CCF and maybe how it might apply for their situation, I'd love to chat with anyone.
Awesome, man. I appreciate that. We'll be sure to link that in the notes below.
Cool.
Jonathan, I really appreciate you hopping on and hanging out, man. Literally just showing up to teach folks some lessons and kind of how this has been going for you. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, not a problem at all. I love being on. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you guys for taking the time to hang out with Jonathan and I today. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you guys want to join CCF, you can go to ccfmastermind.com and book a call with the team and see if it's a good fit. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this, and we'll talk to you guys next time.